Hello, everybody. On today's episode, I have on a guest who is supplying edible landscapes worldwide. He and his team are offering multiple ways for you to grow a forest of food right in your very own yard. They offer multiple options as well as a custom food forest design. He is CEO of Food Forest Abundance. Everybody, welcome Jim Gale to the show.
Thank you so much, Todd. It's a pleasure to be on your show and to share with the world how easy it is for us to take back our power on every level, right? And I'm talking every level. Financially, this makes sense. If you want to save time, this makes sense. We're going to bust through all the BS belief systems out there about growing food, and we're going to inspire you, everybody listening, through one of our means or another to just take the first step and start putting seeds in the ground.
That is, there's so many myths about growing food. And before we get into that, I just want to have Mimi say hi to the audience.
Hello, everybody.
Mimi wanted to sit in on this especially because she's so excited about we've been growing food ourselves and we want to know some specifics. Yeah, very. We just got started. We got our feet a little wet,
Great.
so to speak. So, Jim, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself and how you got started with Food Forest Abundance?
Okay, I'll break it down into a couple different sections, right? It really starts with this idea of a vision and asking new questions, right? So I went through the red pill experience back in like 2007, 8, where I learned that the world wasn't as I had thought it was. That's when I started realizing that governmente truly does mean govern, which means manager, control, and mente is mine. And I started asking new questions. And I had my first two daughters at that time, Mia and Selah. And I started looking at the world from a more long-term lens. Before that, I was just doing whatever came next. I had goals and some things like that, but I really wasn't concerned about the future. But when you have kids, that just radically changed. And I started to say, what's the world going to be like in 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years? What's the world for my grandchildren going to be like at the current rate of destruction and poison and mining of our resources and soils and all that stuff, right? And I went through this kind of shitty period. I'm an optimist. I love life and I love focusing on good stuff. But, when you're so deep into the rabbit hole, you're looking at the problems and you know that this is real to some degree. So I actually was going through that period when I read Bill Mollison's quote. His quote was, "Though the problems of our world are increasingly complex, the solutions remain embarrassingly simple." And I was like, in fact, I got the chills just saying that, because when I actually say it and really incorporate it into the knowing that it is, and then demonstrating it for the last 14 years in different ways, I know that is true. So when you pack that quote in with this one by Victor Hugo, there's one thing more powerful than all of the armies of the world, and that is an idea whose time has come. Think about the relevance of that right now. When the armies of the world, some of them are literally forcing people to do things against their will, that the majority of people, or many people anyway, maybe not the majority, but many people say, I don't really want to do that. And then it's forced, right? That's violence. Our job is to convey this message that we can create a voluntary society where there's literally abundance everywhere.
Wow. Well, there are so many things that I relate to in what you were saying for myself and my process. And what's happening with me at the moment is that I am really trying to, as you said, you were red pilled and seeing the future for your grandchildren and look through from their perspective on the track that the world's headed. And I feel that a lot of people don't have that elongated view. And I myself am just getting it. And today, the school, so I don't want to get too into this, but the school is doing things that I don't agree with. And I got my daughter exempt from wearing a mask. They're making all kids wear a mask. I told them, nope, like that's not happening. And I did what I could for all the other kids. And unfortunately, my voice wasn't enough, but it was enough for my daughter, so she doesn't have to wear one.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, and I got them to take down this video. They had a propaganda video of vaccines. It was all a bunch of student athletes, probably 14 to 17, and different coaches, and they're doing a video called "Take the Shot," and it's about a bunch of basketball players, and they're shooting up, and it's like, are you that it disgusted me so much, and I got them to take that video down. I
That's
said, don't be doing anything like that again.
Todd, you're a hero. Like that is
Oh,
epic, and that is the story that I need to start telling that. In fact, I'm
well,
going to start
thank
telling
you.
that story. And my
Well,
friend Todd, that's awesome.
yeah, well, then today, or I think it was Friday, they sent out this thing. Now I don't know if this is new or not. This is only our second year here because we moved from Philly to Georgia, which I'll get to tell you in a moment here. But they sent out this thing called the school governance team,
Yeah.
and for parents to sign up for, and I signed up for it. It's somebody who has the ear of the principal, and I want to have a voice for these kids that obviously no one's sticking up for them. So
I love that.
yeah, I'm having the same view that you said you had back then. I'm coming into that right now.
That's so awesome, man. And as you do that and share it about how you did it and what the results you got, and then we adjust and you'll inspire more people to do that. It's so wow, that's important.
Well, I hope so. Yeah, it is. It's super important. And the whole summer, my daughter and my stepdaughter, they were with their other half of the family, for the summer for 2 months. So my girlfriend and I, that stuff wasn't in our mind. We don't wear masks ever. We don't talk vaccines. Nobody, that's just not a part of our lives at all. And then our daughters come back like a week and a half before school starts, and then it's all of a sudden now they're doing, which they at first they said it was recommended masks, which were like, okay, whatever, our kids just aren't going to wear them. And then they changed it to mandatory masks like the day before, and it's like, hold on a second. And now they put up this propaganda video, so it was very much in my face and very much reminded me that this is going on in the world and I need to do something about it. You gotta. I know Sam says it all the time. You gotta Sam Tripoli, that you gotta act locally, think globally, act locally, and
Yes.
I'm really trying to do that now, and especially this is why I have you on. Food forest abundance is going to be so important in the very near future, I believe, and growing your own food is going to be probably the best thing that you can do for yourself starting from today on.
Absolutely. And in fact, I'll give some of the reasons why. Well, first of all, we're aware that there are people, and there always have been, at every level of our divine natural system. They're parasites, from wood ticks and mosquitoes to the Rothschilds and Rockefellers, who suck the blood, the energy of the people, right?
Yeah.
So when you understand that that's the base reality, then you say, okay, well, how does that happen when we outnumber them ridiculously, right? So it happens by, in fact, Henry Kissinger, one of the deep state slave masters, back 50 some years ago, he said, if you want to control nations, control oil. If you want to control people, control food. And this strategy has led to the dismantling of the family farm. They even went so far as to subsidize the removal of fruit trees in some states, especially California, where you have backyard fruit trees, and they'd say, for the common good, this particular type of tree has a particular type of worm or fungus, so we need to get rid of all of them. So we'll pay you $200 to take this tree out. It's all part of the same strategy of enslavement, and yet the solutions are embarrassingly simple. We simply there's 40 to 50 million acres of lawn in the United States. When we turn 30–40% of that lawn into something that makes sense on every single level, from the individual, the health, monetarily, and the societal level, we win the Garden of Eden.
Yeah, that's some mind-blowing stuff. 40 to 50 million acres of lawn, and it brings me to when I watched a show, what's it called, everybody, I forget what it was. It's on True TV. It's the guy that dispels myths. Everybody hates. I forget what his name is. I wanted to give him credit, but oh well. But there was an episode where he talks about lawns and how it's all manufactured, and that the grass is actually foreign grass. It's not even American grass in like 90% of the cases.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And a lot of people think that I hate the lawn and they see a sliver of grass coming up and they're mulch. I'm like, that's good. Lawn, it's balance, it's imbalance that we are working to change. We're working to mimic natural systems and bring balance back because we are so far out of balance. There's sustainable and unsustainable are the same as live and evil, or, life and death and slavery and freedom. Like it's all the same thing. Every unsustainable process means it's going to collapse for sure. So all we have to do is just transform using natural systems. And this is one of the biggest myths. Farming is hard. Now, farming is hard, the new traditional way, right? The former traditional way, like the Amazon rainforest, was a designed human settlement that they just did it right. And then when they left 5,000 years ago, the Mayans, all of a sudden it just turns into this thriving, epic abundance,
So the Amazon, you're saying, is a man-made forest.
Man-designed, right?
Man-designed forest. Okay.
God-made or source-made, however you look at who creates it, or how this whole thing got created. It's definitely man-designed, and then nature did all the rest of it.
Oh wow, that I've never heard that before. That it does work in how it's now breaking down, or they're tearing down parts of it and they're finding all this ancient stuff underneath of it. That
Yes.
it looks like this was grown over, that there was something there that all this forest grew over.
Exactly. It's amazing. And then they all of a sudden disappeared. Maybe they raised their vibrations so much that they just vibrated out of our reality. I mean, I don't know. But it's pretty amazing how that paradise, they left it and it just continued. And that's the same thing with a food forest. You can put a food forest in your yard and come back 30 years later, and you're going to have a food forest.
Okay. So what exactly is a food forest?
A food forest is a food production system designed to mimic natural systems. So to get a little deeper into it, there are many different types of plants. There's layers to a food forest. So you've got your roots and tubers underground, and your herbaceous layer, and your small shrubs, and your larger shrubs, your small fruit trees, and your taller fruit trees, and then your vining plants. And so you can put all of these into a community of plants, kind of like a guild, right? And these plants actually support each other. The nitrogen fixers add nitrogen to the soil and help build soil. The green manure plants like the Mexican sunflower and moringa, I love moringa, you chop them, you lay them down on the ground, and they become green mulch. So, and then you put your beneficial insect attractors in, your pollinator attractors, because you need to attract the butterflies and the bees. And then you got the birds coming in, and all of these animals and this natural system is coming into the system and then bringing whatever's out there in at the same time as they're bringing whatever's in out. So it's expansive in the most glorious way.
So it's a self-sustaining, self-expanding process that you just have to put in place.
Yes, you nailed it.
Wow. So the way you design these is with, you're saying, the different size trees, is it all contained within the larger trees or the outside, and then it moves smaller and smaller as you go inwards, or how is the design typically in a general sense?
Every design is custom depending on primarily what does the customer want? What is their vision? What are their goals and desires, right? That's where we start. And 99% of customers don't have any idea what's possible. So it's a really fun conversation because they might think they can name maybe 5 or 6 fruit trees or berry bushes or different edibles that are in their area. And then when we expose to them many, many more and how they work together, that's when it really, you see the light turn on.
Okay. You look like you have a question over there.
I just want to do this already.
Go ahead. Oh, you mean have the food forest?
Yeah, I just want to have one already.
Awesome.
Yeah. I don't have a question yet.
Okay. So
I'm just mesmerized by the,
yeah.
the self-sustaining part, since I'm a little bit of not a green thumb. So that's why we kind of started small, and I'm trying to get better. So self-sustaining would be very helpful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man, my thumb's not green either. And that whole thing is I think it's all part of the psyop, all part of the control mechanism of black thumb and brown thumb and green thumb. It's really something that they would get out there. And you know how they control the minds of people through the mainstream media, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I like to tell this story because this one, I've got a master's in neurolinguistics. I understand to some degree how this stuff works. So they had a CIA guy in a lecture hall lecturing to the other people, and he was detailing exactly how they were going to go about controlling the narrative and the thought processes, the belief systems of the masses, right? And this was very well documented, by the way, in Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. Phenomenal. I think it's 48, 50-page document. Anyway, so what they did is they said, okay, there's two people in a room, and they had somebody walk into the room, put their hand on the desk, and walk out of the room, right? So then they asked, did you see somebody come into the room, put their hand? Of course I saw that, right? 100% people. Then they asked, did the person who come in the room have a gun? And like 97% said no. Just by asking the question, some people with very creative minds imagined that there was a gun there, right? Then they asked a follow-up question. Did the person who came in the room with a gun put his hand on the desk? Right? See where I'm going with this? Guess what happened? 70. So then almost everybody said yes, the person put his hand on the desk. Very few people caught the statement that was the presupposition that wasn't even factual. It was just a bullshit statement brought into this narrative, right? So then they asked the question, follow-up question to those people. Did the person have a gun? And 70% said yes. They literally, at one time, they literally programmed the people. So now I'm listening to mainstream media like yesterday or the day before, 5 minutes, I turn on like once a month to just get a kick out of it and shake my head. And they had the same thing. In fact, it was RT. They said, because of this dangerous and very transferable virus, they made the statement, and then they made another statement or another question. And the whole statement the premise was completely false.
Right. It's the leading question, which isn't allowed in court. You have a leading question, which then brings the person who you're leading the question to, it brings them from one place to another. So they think that they're getting there, but they're not getting there themselves, but they think that they are. But once you tell them, like, no, you're being led to the water, you're not just appearing at water, you're being led there. They're like, no, I'm here. So I had to figure it out. And it's so hard to convince them, or not convince them, it's so hard to get them to understand that they've been tricked. What's this saying? It's easier
to fool a man.
Yeah, than to tell him he's been fooled.
There you go. That's the one. Isn't that so relevant right now? As we try to explain these things to people and they just shut off. They just completely. So that's why I'm taking a different approach. I want to inspire people with a thing that almost everybody agrees with this. I mean, the Democrats believe in it because it's sustainable and green and because of the carbon footprint narrative that they like to talk about, right? The Republicans believe in it because it's freedom and health and smart money, right? The independents freaking go nuts over it because it is the only path to independence.
Yeah. So this food forest abundance. Now, I'm here in Georgia. I know you guys are right in Florida. So what would be some of the? I'm guessing, based on what you said earlier, that there's probably hundreds of different things that I could grow in my yard. But we have sandy type of soil. Does that matter? Should we bring in new soil?
Everything we start with is building soil, right? So a friend of mine, one of our designers, his name is Chad Johnson. He owns a property kind of near the tip of Lake Superior in Duluth, Minnesota, right? Cold. And most of my Minnesota friends say, I don't really think we don't have a good enough growing season. He's got like 300 different edible and medicinal plants and other support species in his system. And it's just fantastic. Just standing there, you can feel the energy and the life is everywhere. Like, do butterflies make you feel good? Everybody. Doesn't matter who you are. If you see a butterfly and you really look at it, you're like, oh my gosh. Well, that is what should be everywhere all the time, right? And that's been very systematically and strategically taken out of society. But our job, our duty to our posterity is to bring that back.
Okay. So with the sandy soil, is that any good, or does it just need to be completely covered with a new soil?
It needs to be layered so this idea of weeds, right? That is a big bunch of BS.
Right.
Weeds there's no such thing as inefficiency in a natural system. If it does, it gets booted out of the system, right? Over time. Weeds, every one of them becomes a pioneer or has a function. So even if you just let it go and you quit using the poisons, and that's the number one thing, we have to expose the poisons and the poison producers and literally completely take them out of society. So with regards to building sandy soil into good soil, you want to cover the ground. You want to get the starter pioneers in there that actually build soil and produce the minerals and nutrients. Dandelions are awesome,
Okay.
and millions more. So you get them in, you put layers of mulch on, a little bit of soil, and then 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 inches, 12 inches of mulch. And over time, especially if it's seeded with the right stuff, that's going to turn into gold.
Okay. Okay, that's very interesting because we were watching videos, I think, out of the Charleston group. They had a
Oh, yeah.
couple Facebook videos,
Yep.
and they did have a lot of mulch on there. And that was one question we had right away: is like, is mulch the best thing? So, what did you have something off that?
Well, I'm interested in the entire process from designing the blueprint to installing it for someone. Is there some sort of like hands-on type training for who you're installing for all of that? I'm interested in all of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we launched on Earth Day, and please just don't feel bad about just bringing me back to the question, because sometimes I get on a path that is relevant and then I miss the original question. So please bring me back if needed. So we launched on Earth Day, which is like 3.5 months ago. And since then, we had 3 people on our team, and we were in basically 3 states. Now we are in 11 countries and almost 40 states. We have created a structure. Our foundation is our design team. We have a 15-person professional food forest design team, and they are the ones. So let's say you say, okay, I want to get my backyard turned into a food forest, or half of the lawn transitioned into something that's practical and incredible. So then the designer will call you up and go through a bunch of questions and find out what your goals are. Then we will collect videos and pictures and Google Earth and a survey or measurements. So when we put all of that stuff together, then it takes about 2.5, 3 weeks currently, and then we can hand you a blueprint that you can either DIY, or we can have one of our cooperative partners come in and install for you.
Oh, wow. Okay. So the whole design itself is one thing, and then having you guys come do it is another separate.
Yes, it's exactly like building a house. You have to first start with the architecture, the architect, and then it goes to the builder, and the builder prices out what the architect put down on paper, and then it goes to construction.
Okay, and go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and just to be clear to the listeners, the size of your space doesn't matter. You can start with any size space. Yes,
we put about a 700 square foot food forest in the ground at Galt's, and it's just loaded with food. So that's the smaller end, and then we do any size bigger than that.
Okay, and I see you have a lot of different raised bed gardens available on your site. Now, is that recommended for certain areas, or is that just a different option?
It's recommended now. We recommend some annuals. So I'll talk a little bit about perennials and annuals. Annuals are plants you plant once, tomatoes, cucumbers, and that might vine out for several months and produce just a ridiculous amount. But then to get a new plant, you have to plant a new plant. Perennials, and then they go through their cycle. Perennials are fruit trees and berry bushes and all these plants that you plant them once and they last basically forever. There's an olive tree on the Greek Isle of Crete that was planted over 2,000 years ago.
Wow.
Isn't that cool? So that's what a food
Yeah.
forest is. But back to the question is we advocate a mixture of annuals and perennials because of the short-term food supply issues.
Okay. Is there any pressing food supply issues right now that we should know about?
Yes, all of them. I mean, it's going to hell. Even the UN, which I think is very much a criminal organization, has said that we have 60 years. Now, farmers and permaculturalists also agree. Otherwise, I wouldn't be quoting them. There's a lot of farmers now all around the nation that are being paid $3,800 per acre to till their crops back in. There's major meat processing plants, chickens and pigs and cattle all over the nation that are being shut down. Millions of heads of animals, chickens and pigs and all this are literally being put in ditches because the food supply chain is being systematically, intentionally destroyed to add on to what's going on right now.
Okay, so everybody listening, you just heard all that information. That makes this growing your own food pretty important. And even if you're in a suburb, you're in a city. I know that I've seen you said that some people can have them on their roofs. Is
Yeah.
that true?
It is true. It is true. Our favorite's a soil. Our second favorite is like an indoor grow, and then the roof is similar to that. So yes, yes. And I do want to say too that you don't need hardly any money. In fact, you really don't need any extra money to start growing food. If you go to the store right now and buy some organic tomatoes and some cucumbers and some squash and zucchini and pumpkins and whatever, all the things you like, potatoes for gosh sakes, you just go buy 10, 20 pounds of potatoes, cut them up where they're eyes and stick them in the soil and get the seeds, and you can literally start your own food, your own forest using the groceries that you buy.
Oh, wow. So speaking of organic, what is the difference between organic and non-organic? Is there a
Well, the
difference?
technical difference is just government bullshit. The true difference is one is growing with poisons, the natural way, and the other one is growing without, or one is growing with poisons, the unnatural way, the poisonous, destructive way that's causing most of our ailments in our world, like the sickness, cancers, and all that. The other one is just simply using natural processes, which means no poisons, no GMOs.
Okay, I heard one time, I don't know how true this is. I never looked into it any more than just hearing it, but that organic meant that it's actually from a plant that was never alterated, and that non-organic, at some point in time, they were alterated by man in some way, and that the organic one is the original plant. I don't know if that's true.
It's kind of true. It depends on which, like how focused you are on what
Okay.
altered means. But we've been engineering plants to be different organically and naturally forever. You get two tomatoes, or you take the best seed from the best tomato of the best plant, and now that's your new seed. Now that next plant is a little different, a little better, a little more, available. So there's all sorts of cross hybrids that are coming out that are perfectly awesome in every way.
Okay, so if I'm thinking of getting a food forest in my house, and I have a front yard, is now is there going to be deterrence from different animals that I could do other than, well, not just animals, but pesticides, instead of putting these unnatural things in place to block animals and insects? Is there natural ways to take care of this?
100%. I mean, peppermint is one of my favorites, and there's
Okay.
many, many more. Lemongrass is great, and you can put these all around different areas. Some people will border their whole annual beds with different types of plants that the deer or the rabbits or the squirrels or the mosquitoes don't like.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
So just use other plants to protect the. That's amazing, and it makes so much sense. And like you said, the answer is so embarrassingly simple.
It sure is. My buddy Chad in Minnesota, he has these 8-foot raspberries, he calls them. They're raspberries that are like, they seem to be 5, 6. I couldn't even know how thick they were because you couldn't see the other side and they were over my head. So they were thick, and you can't get through that. I mean, it's thorns, right? And probably 90% of that goes to the birds, and there's still way more than enough for all the raspberries that we can eat.
Wow. Wow.
I wonder what we could grow on the fence that would be edible.
Yes.
Like
Yes. Grapes.
honeysuckles, are fun to play with for the kids. And
Yes. Fences are phenomenal. It's an element in the system that can have multiple functions, right? So we make food fences, turn every fence into a trellis. It's more beautiful and it produces a ridiculous amount of food over time.
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah, we love that. We have a couple archways around our house, one in the front, one in the back, and we're like, what can we grow on there? And we don't want just any
Anything,
vine just
yeah.
growing on there. We want something nice.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Something useful. Yeah.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
beautiful. And like in
And
every
beautiful,
way.
right.
It's great.
Yeah, well, it's so funny that this is coming up now because I just bought a bag of grass. So we've had there was a whole bunch of woods that overtook the property, and when I moved in last year, Mimi and I cleared out so much, and we added on a large portion of
Very large.
yeah, very large portion of the property. We reclaimed space
Nice.
that we weren't using. So there's a lot of stuff over in this section that is, weeds, not weeds like you were
I know
just
what you
saying, but yeah, it's not something that we want there. They're nut trees that we don't want there. So if we have something in place like that, how could we stop that if we were to grow the food forest over top of it? Is there some way we could stop that from growing up through what we're growing?
So we do a lot of sheet mulching, and there's different ways to suppress what's there because that becomes competition for what you want, right?
Mhm.
So we do a lot of cardboard, a lot of sheet mulching, and different kind of systems. But another thing I want to share is a lot of that stuff you have there now can be used as the foundation for the new stuff. So you cut a tree down and you turn it into wood chips, or you cut the bushes and you turn them into mulch. And now that becomes energy that transfers to the next thing.
Right. Right. Yeah. So we did all that, but what I mean now is that we have these new nuts growing the trees.
Oh,
so
yeah. And
like
Georgia, as soon as they fall, they grow.
yeah. So I'll run over with a lawnmower, and then 2 days later, it's like a little tree, and then we'll pull them out, but they still
Forget what they're
keep.
called.
Yeah, they're a
sour
little.
sour gum, something gum.
Yeah.
Trees.
There we go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're. Is there something I could do to stop them from growing up outside of tilling the land and?
So layers, if you could put layers of like cardboard in and then layers of mulch on top, you're going to really suppress a lot of that. And
Cardboard?
Yeah.
Okay. I've never heard of that. I'll definitely be using that. But like I was saying, I bought the grass, but then I heard your episode and I'm like, wait, I don't want to put more grass down. I want to bring in food forest.
Yeah.
So I see that there's a bunch of different options that you guys have, and some of them can get quite pricey. Now, on the prices, are these? So just what I see on your website, it has a few different ones. Is that the price of just the blueprint itself, or is that?
I'll share. So the
Okay.
blueprint, the standard blueprint, we've created a system whereby we handle pretty much all the marketing and all the structure, and we hand our designers customer after customer, right? So that allows them to focus on what they love to do, which is food forest design. And it also allows us to bring the price way down. So our backyard, full, basically edible landscape design for a normal suburban backyard, like up to a quarter acre, is $797.
And that's with design, and that's the materials you guys bring in
Design.
and everything?
Yeah,
that's
just
design,
design.
Right,
Okay.
that's architecture. Materials, you could spend $2,000 or $3,000 just in mulch if you wanted to, or
Right.
you could go to chipdrop.com, and if they have somebody in your area that needs to unload their mulch, they'll deliver it for free sometimes, quite a bit.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we'll give those type of tips. Chipdrop.com for anybody out there who wants free mulch or inexpensive mulch. They're a great resource, but they're just not very timely. It's just whenever it's available. So
Right.
you might not get it, so.
Okay. So for the materials, that depends on where you live at and how much the mulch will cost, or the seeds and the plants cost.
Yeah, exactly. That depends on exactly that. Where you live, what the market will bear for fruit trees and mulch and soil, and then delivery charges, right? So the average backyard install for a suburban back home is probably around $7,500. The average overall, because we do a lot of big ones too, is over 20,000.
Oh wow, 20,000. Okay.
Yeah,
So
but what you get out of that is
right,
a lifetime of food.
right. Yeah. So these fields that you know, forests that you're putting together, they're going to be sustainable, pretty much. I don't want to say by themselves, but they're going to be repeated perennials that come up every year. That things that are going to drop and they're going to replant new ones, like those types of things.
They're just going to live them. Yes to that, and they're also they're long-lasting plants.
Right.
So even if they don't drop anymore, which they will, then you're still going to have a significant food forest.
Right, so the only thing the customer would replant every year would be your tomato plants, your cucumbers, your things like that.
Yes, that's
Okay,
right.
and do you give like a set of like maintenance, soil maintenance instructions or anything like
Yeah,
that when these
great
installs are
questions.
done?
Yeah, we do what's called a food forest blueprint. And we use this technology where it's kind of like a magazine where you open up the page and it gives you all the narrative about a food forest and maintenance and upkeep. And then within that narrative is your blueprint with your personal narrative.
Okay.
And we have a system, we have Telegram, we have social media of all kinds where we're constantly putting out new content about inspiring content and referral or when people say reviews and all that stuff. So
I did see a few Facebook groups in different areas that are
Yeah,
FFA.
and you guys are only 3.5 months old. You said that's quite amazing that you guys have grown so much so quickly.
Yeah, it's really exciting. We've got a TV pilot coming out. We just had another major TV personality reach out today that could be huge. And now we've got a major investor who just invested a bunch of money. So it's going. It's like, and this guy is just almost awesome, aware guy. And he's like, Jim, this is the most important thing in the world. My resources. He's got companies all over the world. And he said, they're yours. Let's do this. And so.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. So you guys are having, you said it's going to be a TV show, like a regular weekly show, or?
Yes, so there's several things that are happening, but one will be the pilot coming out with people I don't want to say them on air because it's just, I feel like, but yeah, for sure, a famous producer who produced my favorite TV series ever, I think, about a guy who loves the outdoors. And then another one, and he died a few years back. And then another one was from a very popular HBO series, like one of the most popular. It was, yeah. So these people are coming aboard and other movie stars. So our vision is on top of the podcast and the marketing, everything else we're doing is to go to these influencers' houses and install just incredibly beautiful food forests to inspire more people to do the same.
Yeah, and I got to say how responsive you are with your emails as well. I emailed you to come on the show, and we started talking about getting our own design in here, and I didn't even know. My girlfriend started researching you way before like the day before that I even heard your episode. She was researching it completely.
That's crazy.
I know. I'm thinking like home makeover, backyard makeover. Count us in. We're all for it.
So the synchronicities are incredible. They're just everywhere right now.
Yeah, and I said this to somebody yesterday that I was talking to because someone said it to me a couple weeks ago. He's like, the closer you get to home, the more synchronicities you have because the more you recognize.
Yes, that's exactly. That just gives me the chills. I get that.
The closer you are to home, the more you recognize.
Yeah. Well, yes. So this is something that we really want to get involved with. Now, is there any other ways that people are getting involved? Are there people that you're having go around locally to spread the word, or how is that happening?
That's exactly right. So we have the design team, we have the marketing and management and install teams, and then we have our food forest cooperative. And so a little backstory, I spent about $250,000 getting a franchise model ready to do this exact thing. And I'm holding these documents. One was 244 pages. The other one was 89 pages. And I threw that shit in the trash because that's 300 and some pages of rules about how you're going to live your life if you work with us. No, that's exactly the opposite of everything we're all about. So I threw it away, and we now have a 2-page document that spells out the voluntary exchange of value that we are with Food Forest Abundance. The business is a lot like landscaping, except for it's easier in a lot of ways because you don't have to do concrete or hardscapes or anything. You can if you know how to, or if you sub it out, but it's about layering the soil, following the blueprint, and putting food in the ground for people. It is a win on every level. And we also teach regenerative capitalism that benefits on every level. And it's how we change the world, because communism is not the way we want to go.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And do you guys have anything local to Savannah that is doing this?
You know what? I don't think we have a co-op there yet. We've signed up 9 in the last 4 days, but not in Savannah. We do have design customers there. So if you're interested, I would love to talk with you about representing us there. The co-op there's a fee because we put together a massive package, right? Marketing and signs and shirts and cards and hats and all that stuff, plus the use of our brand, and we give the first right of refusal in any area. When we get a design customer, it would be your first right of refusal to take that customer or not. It's $2,950 for the whole package. And we can even work with that to some degree with financing for people who really get it and want to move forward.
Yeah, well, definitely have to talk to you about that, off air or through email later on, because I am I used to be a landscaper when I was a teenager, and I loved it, but I was doing mostly cutting grass, weed whacking, but I like doing the garden stuff. And when I moved here, as I said, I was cutting down a lot of the stuff, and Mimi was manning the fire, because fire was burning for days. We had so much stuff that we got,
and roots and all kinds of things.
Yeah, so it was a very big process, but I've been redoing all the gardens here. Like the other day, I just shoveled out 4 tons of rock and dirt from one garden bed and had to move it out. And as soon as I did, grass started growing underneath, and it hasn't. That rock has been there for a few years now, so and just popped right up. It's like it didn't want that shit on there. So right. I'm doing a lot of yard work, and I just absolutely love working with my hands, being in the garden and all.
Yeah.
So to do that on a larger scale, I would definitely be interested in partaking in that.
And it's fun and it's profitable. So it's like landscaping, where we've got about a 40% margin. And so an average job is going to pay you like $3 or $4 grand for 3 or 4 days work with 2 or 3 people, not including labor, because you got to have labor in there as well. So it's a very wonderful business model that everybody wins. And we take 7% to run our company. That is for basically all the support. And I started a mortgage company when I was 30. Ended up doing $1.3 billion in closed loans in just over 3 years. And I bought a boat, lived on the ocean, then I moved to Costa Rica, and that's when I really dug in and learned this stuff. But when you're now doing your landscaping, you're going to get paid not 10, 12, 15, 20 bucks an hour, but you're going to make a really nice income.
Wow. Well, so you made $1.3 billion in 3 years?
Gross sales. Yeah, I made many millions, but gross sales was 1.3 billion.
Okay, and that kind of led you into this, you were saying? So how did
that led me into the freedom that had me asking different questions about what's going on in the world. And then when I found out and I started going down that rabbit hole, I didn't really need to work. So I studied it for it was too much, 12 hours a day sometimes.
I gotta tell you, you're a humble guy. You're telling me you have your master's in neurolinguistics, and also that you've grossed $1.3 billion in 3 years from a mortgage team. I mean, you're a very accomplished man, and you do not have an air of arrogance about you that most people do who have garnered the type of accessories that you have in your lifetime.
Yeah, and that arrogance is based in fear and shame and unworthiness and all those things. And I've went through all those periods. I mean, I've learned a lot. I've really put my mind every single day. I'm listening to my teachers, Dr. Joe Dispenza, Abraham Hicks, Alan Watts, and then just my kids. I've got a baby girl. In fact, I like this one. This is a moment I'm proud of. I lived in Africa with the Maasai.
Okay.
And that they were just amazing people, right? So little different things like that. I've had a lot of success, a lot of failures. You know, you can't, when you win, you party. When you learn, you ponder. And I've had to do a lot of pondering too, but I wouldn't change a thing because it allowed me to be sitting right here talking to you with the whole thing going viral.
Wow. I mean, I'm so honored to be speaking with someone like you. You've been through a lot in your life, it seems, and you've been many different people, and now you're here in front of me as like one of the most humble, honest people I've ever spoken to, and you have so many accomplishments, and all you want to do is help people grow their own food and teach them to sustain themselves in their own way.
For 100% selfish reasons, right? And this is something that I like to teach people. There is no other truth as far as a perspective than the perspective of self. Everything we do because we're going to think, we're going to feel better in the doing of it or the having of it. I learned to look at things from a fourth position or a very kind of high level. I didn't learn. I strategically and intentionally pulled back and started looking at things from this level and saying, what's best for me, what's best for my family, what's best for my community, what's best for my world. And when all of those things align, you got it.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And that's how I'm starting to see everything is it did start out actually I was on a podcast. It's never aired, but it was about 2 years ago. I talked to the guy and I was like, I'm becoming better because I'm doing it in a selfish way because it makes me feel better to do things for others.
Yes. Dude,
Yeah.
you nailed it. You're way ahead of the curve. That's beautiful.
Well, it's I'm just being guided there. I feel like we all are really. It's either you're becoming so scared out of your mind that you're afraid of someone without a mask and a needle in their arm, or you're just like, okay, this is what's happening today.
Fear is the number one mechanism of control. Fear, shame, rage, pride, all these things are control tools. So our job, my joyful obsession is to raise people out of that and have them focus forward on something that inspirits them, or they're enthusiastic, right? Something that gets them in touch with the vibration of nature and love and joy. And then once you're in that state, then going backwards really sucks. Like, oh, I hate this. Then, okay, so how do you get back forward? Okay, you go back forward by focusing on what you love about life, focusing on what you're thankful for, focusing on anything that brings you joy. I think Joseph Campbell said, follow your bliss, and truer words have never been spoken.
Yeah. And going back to what you were saying earlier, the virus, or I'm sorry, not the virus, the
Government.
Government is the virus. Media is the virus. That's a saying that amongst conspiracy theorists, and I could count myself in that group as well. But what brings it to reality for me is that if you look at what a real virus does to the human body, is it latches onto its host, and the human body has red blood cells and white blood cells. The red blood cells just move the message from the heart to the rest of the body. White blood cells think they're red blood cells until the virus appears, and then they know what they're there to do. And I feel like I'm a white blood cell in this sense, that I know what the virus is. We know what the virus is, and we are now doing what we're supposed to do in order to remove the virus, which is convince all the red blood cells that they don't need the virus to live, because the virus has trick them into believing that they need the virus in order to live, the parasite in order
Yeah.
to live.
I love it. That's really a cool way to look at it. I haven't looked at it exactly that way, but I agree 100%. It's yes. And then it's all about vibration, frequency, and energy. As Tesla said, if you want to change the world in 10 years, more than it's ever changed, you think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. And that's it. I can feel it now. Anytime I focus on it, I can feel and hear and sense this. We're in a physical thing. It's everywhere, right? So let's raise that energy up and let's do what brings us the most joy. And all paths to freedom must include regenerative food. Local.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll take it one step further. Is you can feel it around you. Well, science calls it dark matter. It's dark to them because they have no soul. So what it actually is love. So that's what's completely surrounding us and moving everything.
Yeah, it is. And then the lack of love or the fear of not being loved is what controls so many of these people. Like there's allowing and controlling. All controlling is based in fear. All allowing is based in faith and courage. And when we help people have faith that we're more than this physical body and have courage to stand up and speak out and to say, no, I do not comply, then that is a big part of it as well, right?
Right. Yeah, and that's what I'm trying to, like I was saying, that I'm doing with the school, trying to get involved as much as I can. I never realized, not that I never realized, but when you're in a society that doesn't place importance on, even though I don't want to say society doesn't, because people say like, oh, you got to be involved in your kids' lives, but the way that it's done, it's just like, you're just hovering over them rather than seeing the bigger picture that there's, let them go make their mistakes and do what they did. I made my mistakes and I still got to where I am, and it's been beautiful. So I don't need to hover over my daughter, but I need to teach her what to do, and I need to make sure that putting the other adults that are around her in notice, I guess, of this is acceptable or this isn't acceptable.
Right.
And that's what's really been triggering me, or not triggering me, but having me accelerate my expansion in that sense lately.
Accurate. And how do you affect a system the most, right? It has to start internally, right? It has to start with our own awareness, our own vibration, our own love, and then building and building and building that by just constantly following the path. And I go off it, many times a day. I'm like, I have a thought that I catch myself. Maybe 20, 30 years ago, I might have had a thought for 3 days. Then maybe 5 years ago was a day. Year ago was a week. Now, usually I can catch these thoughts within minutes, and then I can look to the opposite of that thought. What do I really want?
Yeah, that's what I'm doing as well. That's an amazing way that you worded that, because sometimes I am doing something so unconsciously that I can't, but I become aware of it, but I can't put it into words, and then I hear someone say it and I'm like, oh, that's it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. This whole process has just been so much fun since we launched. This fella that's investing and taking us, helping us go global is I've got an off-grid community here called Galt's Landing, after John Galt from Atlas Shrugged. And it's 52 acres on a private lake. It's got a runway to the East Coast, which we don't own yet, but we're looking to buy that, where you could park your plane in your garage and stuff. It's a really neat community. But what's neat about it isn't that stuff, although that's pretty cool. What's neat about it is every home site will come with its own complete food, water, and energy systems. Will be complete. There's no grid. So completely off grid. And I'm going to be using that as my studio and my stage and everything. So my job is to have the best, most loving, wonderful life I could possibly have, and show the world this is what you can have too. You just got to do it.
Wow.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, her and I were just talking the other day. I was like, imagine if, so we live, I'm not going to say the name of it, but we live in this little section of that's way out of the way, and you have to purposely come to where we live in order to be here. We're our little sectioned off place that there's only, one way in, one way out, but it's a few miles circle.
Yeah.
Right at the end, it's essentially a huge cul-de-sac, just miles long. So I said to her, I was like, imagine if we got all these people that thought the same way we do with the food forest abundance and the way that we're going to help each other out, that we don't need to give each other paper money, that we could just help each other do things. Imagine if we had this little section, we would never have to leave. Give it 5 years of us to build it up. No one would ever have to leave this community. And here we talk to you 2 days later, and that's kind of what you're doing, one state away from us.
Synchronicities are everywhere, buddy. That's fun.
Yeah, that's incredible. Do you have any more questions, Mira?
I'm sure I will have some, but I think I asked all mine.
I do have a question for you. So my show is called Godcast, the Goodness Over Darkness podcast, because it's all about how the light overtakes the darkness. I've been through a lot of stuff in my lifetime. I went 6 years ago. I was in prison for burglarizing pharmacies. And, I was 280 pounds. I smoked cigarettes. I mean, I ran the gamut of things wrong with me. And now here I am today. I moved 750 miles in the middle of 2020 because of all the craziness that was going on. And, my family thought I was crazy for moving, but now I just started offering services on my website that I do meditative services and this type of thing. And I'm doing a blog and all. So things are advancing for me quickly. And my family's now saying that I'm not crazy, even though they thought I was at one time. Now they're saying that, vaccine passports are becoming a thing, even though I was called crazy for talking about it last year. So the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I had to learn how to ground myself and how to integrate all of my red pill knowledge with my physical, dumb human side, and I had to mix the two of them. And I feel like now more than ever, I am right there, and it's because of my grounding techniques and my relaxation activities. And now you, being the person that you are with all the successes that you're talking about, and how spiritual you are, that I could only imagine that you have some great grounding techniques and relaxation activities that you could share for my audience.
Oh, every day. It's really just about allowing the mind to just relax. And no effort. You don't put any effort into the kind of meditation that helps me. I just breathe, and I just consciously and very joyfully and focus on the breath. And then I feel my shoulders drop. I feel the muscles loosen. I feel here. This is where I've had a tightness for quite a while. So there's going to be an opening there. I don't know what that means, but it means something badass cool. I've had 7 ayahuasca ceremonies with shamans.
Oh, wow.
Psilocybin. And there's more that I'm going to be trying with different plant medicines, which, by the way, are all illegal because they frickin' work. Of course, the government doesn't want a peace pipe, right? Because that's peace. You don't want peace if you're the government. So anyway, to be consciously using and exploring the depths of consciousness with the number one thing, you don't need any of that other stuff. It really, what I needed was just to silence, just allow my mind to just relax and just to feel my body.
Okay. So what do you like to do to relax? Like if say your wife isn't home for the day and your kids aren't there, are you going to go throw on some Netflix? Or what are you going to do to relax?
So I like to tell a little fun one about television, and once in a while I do throw on some Netflix. But I also recognize that the government is in control of the programs on the television entertainment. Entertain means to hold, and mente is mind, right? So I'm aware of that. So I look at it through that lens of really just entertainment And then where are they trying to get in my head? But at the same time, I don't worry about it, pay too much attention to it. So I don't ever turn on TV if I want to relax. I go lay in the bed and I just lay there and I just feel my whole body vibrating. And then that vibration connects me again. And then maybe that's 10 or 15 minutes. I get up and do whatever else I have to do.
Wow. So it sounds like you're super in tune with the world, with yourself, with everything that's happening in your environment.
Yes, I feel very much in tune, and the magic is everywhere. It's just, I read Wayne Dyer's book was one of the first books I read, Real Magic, and it's just so true. It's just a matter of just paying attention, right?
Okay. And do you walk around barefoot outside a lot?
Every day.
Yeah, yeah. I have so many people. That's the number one thing people say when I ask them, because I ask pretty much all my guests that, and a lot of people say they're tree huggers or that they walk barefoot outside.
Barefoot's beautiful. Nature of all kinds is this connection, to
Yeah,
sit with it and just hear. All of a sudden, you can hear the birds in the distance and you see the butterflies. All of a sudden, you see beauty everywhere.
yeah, yeah. And I like meditating outside. We'll be sitting in the sun, and I'll face the sun, and my girlfriend faces away because it's a little too hot for her. But I like sweating a lot, so I would face the sun, and bare feet in the ground, and then all of a sudden it's nothing but we're listening to some music, obviously, and then we just hear the environment, and there's just different birds that are just chirping away, and the wind, and
That's beautiful, man.
it's so peaceful.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love it. And you mentioned the sun too. We've been programmed to believe that the sun is bad. And of course, over anything is bad, right? Several people have died of too much water consumption. But the sun, most all Americans are deficient in vitamin D. They're deficient in joy and sunlight. So be conscious of your time in the sun. And in 20, 30 minutes a day, 10, 15 minutes a day, whatever feels right? Get back to feeling yourself. And that is some of the healthiest things you can ever do for yourself.
Yeah. So everybody, get your notepads out and, write all this information down. This is all so much good information to help you better yourself and be one with yourself. And what better way to do that than to have your own food forest in your own backyard, your front yard, your side yard, your roof, your greenhouse, or wherever you're going to put this. I mean, this is just some phenomenal stuff.
Yeah, this is the answer. This is the idea whose time has come. When we inspire enough people, we catalyze a shift in consciousness and we win.
Right. Right. That's where it all starts and ends. Like you said, Henry Kissinger's his saying that if you control the food, you can control the people. And that's, let go of the control by taking back the food.
Yeah, the revolution, right? This is the peaceful way. We don't have to take up arms. If enough people do this, and it's happening for sure. It's baked into the cake. Will it be on this go around or the next one? I don't know, right? Because time is of the essence. There is an urgency that I feel. And every once in a while, I see something and I feel it in a fear way. And I go, no. And then I jump back into what do I got to do next? And how much fun can that be? And then it just opens up.
Oh, that's important what you just said right there. How much fun can that be? You're looking at at life through the lens of fun and wonderment and excitement. It's so much different than when you're doing it out of a place of fear and nervousness and I know I'm not going to like where I'm going. When you have no idea what's about to happen. I do it to myself a lot with the podcast specifically. I'll talk about that. I'll be like, okay, who am I going to have next week? I have nobody on the schedule. And then I'm, I get flustered for like a few seconds. And then I'm like, well, I don't even know what's going to happen an hour from now. How can I possibly know what's going to happen next week?
I love it. Yeah. And yes, that's just letting it flow, putting the intention out to the universe and then paying attention, and the messages always come. That's the magic of it. The more I listen to, my favorite teacher is this woman, a redheaded woman who was the inspiration for the show, The Secret. And she's called Abraham Hicks. And when I listen to her live every time answering questions to big groups of people, I'm just blown away. And I'm starting to understand and be able to answer questions similar to her now after listening for many years, many hundreds, if not thousands of hours.
Yeah, a lot of people bring her up as well, Abraham Hicks. I hear that
Oh,
name
yeah.
thrown around often. Yeah, I'm into a lot of spiritual podcasts, and I'm always hearing it. Even though I've caught episodes here and there, I always hear the bigger uh, the bigger followings that they're always the ones talking about Abraham Hicks. So maybe I should look into Abraham Hicks more than I have.
It's been good for me, like really good for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, this was a fantastic conversation.
Yes.
I want to thank you again so much for coming on and giving us all the information that you have, and we're super excited to talk about everything we learned today, and then talk to you guys about how we're going to proceed with, the many different options that are available before us.
That's great.
Yeah. Is there any parting information you want to give to our audience? One last thought that you'd like to share?
Sure. Sure. I'm very accessible. Foodforestabundance.com is our website, and my email is jimpgale@gmail.com. JIMP is in Patrick, GALE, like the wind, @gmail.com. And by the way, I'm getting a darn proton mail, but that's kind of in the works because I understand the grid, right? Anyway, so yeah, I just want to inspire you to reach out if you want anything to do with helping other people grow food, helping yourself grow food. That's what we do, and we'd love to help.
All right, folks. I mean, you heard it all here. This was a great conversation, and there's so much here that you can use to get going with the process. And go to Jim's website, and like he said, he was super accessible to me, and very so friendly and quick, responsive. And I mean, you seem like one of the greatest. And not, I don't want to say it in the way that it was about to come off, but you seem like one of the most genuine people I've ever met, and to me, that is a very high praise that I'm giving you.
Well, thank you. It's I appreciate that a lot, and I'm excited to work with you in whatever way inspires you. I mean, as a demonstrator of this, and with your skills at podcasting and all this, it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Oh, well, thank you so much, and I'm so honored to have you say all those things. Mimi, do you have any last thing?
That's it. I'm
All right.
questioned out.
All right, now you hear my dogs going in the background, of course.
Love
All right, so there you have it, folks. Go to Jim's website, like I said, and check him out. Get started with your Food Forest Abundance. All right, everybody, we will talk to you later. Bye.
Ciao.